25 grand a year for a branch manager. Is that enough? Today, I'm joined by Andrew Seldon, who is the managing director of Belvoir and ex big boss at LMAN. Thanks for joining me today, Andrew. We were talking before we switched the cameras on how little people get paid in the estate agency industry. And you were saying you know plenty of places where the branch manager's being paid 25 grand a year
Yeah,
with not much commission on top.
no, it's not. It's not a great salary. It's
No,
below average.
well, it's 1 grand more than the minimum wage, or 2 grand more.
Yeah, I think it's two. Yeah, it's not moved on for 15 years, if not more.
Doesn't, does it?
Um, and I think this sort of creates a bit of a problem in the industry. You're not going to retain people.
I mean, it's a chicken and the egg. We've had fees come down from around 2014. The average fee was about 1.2. If we go back to 2006, it was 1.6. We're now running at 1. Colleagues, sorry, is one of the biggest costs.
Yeah,
If it, chicken and the egg, can we not pay more because our fees are low, or is our fees low, which means we can't,
I think as an industry, we've got to charge a better fee. I've never believed in being arrogant in charging high fees, but you do a good job, you should earn a good fee. And anybody who's been in this job for probably more than 12 months knows it's not an easy job.
Mm.
I think the perception is we go around looking at nice houses and drive nice cars, and it's very, very different. And to have a branch manager who's got pressures from above for that branch to perform, they've got to manage their clients, got to manage their staff. They're probably working somewhere in the region of 6 days a week, if not a bit more. £25,000 a year doesn't cut it, so they go elsewhere, and that's out of the industry. They're not going to other stages.
There's a lot of people leaving the industry.
Yeah,
I mean, but surely someone's going to say, well, you got all your commission on top, but there's commission and there's commission, isn't there?
well, there is, and how good is the commission, and what's the take-home position on that after tax? Selling ancillary products and earning 5, 10, 15 pounds per unit, if you like, after tax barely buys you a coffee. So where's the motivation in that? And also, as I said a minute ago, it's long hours.
And the thing is that you're always being shouted at because there's, if it's not a tenant, it's a landlord. If it's not a buyer, it's a seller.
It's demanding.
It's the psychological where, I think I would hazard a guess that there's more alcoholics in a state agency than
There's a reason for that, yeah. There really is. I think, it's a demanding job. There's a lot of plates being spun at the same time. It can easily derail.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you 2 questions. The first question is, what would your advice be to someone who feels that they are not being paid enough?
I think they have to assess, do they want to stay in the industry?
Well, let's hope they want to stay in that firm first.
Well, if they want to stay in the state agency, and they're not being paid enough, they probably need to do their research. Is there a better paid job at the same level?
I mean, what would your advice be? Surely you'd go to your boss saying, I don't think you paid me enough.
Yeah, you'd have that conversation. They're probably going to be quite defensive. You'll probably find that when you go to your boss and say, I'm leaving, they might come with a higher.
Would you wait to do that, or would you actually go to them and say, look, I'm giving you a chance? And have you got any tips on how to ask for more money? Because nicely, you've been around the block a bit.
Yeah, I think you've got to know your worth. There's definitely people out there that will be thinking they're worth a lot more, but probably aren't, to be fair.
Yep.
I think there are people out there who are worth more and are being ignored. And sometimes the biggest voice in the room that gets the opportunity, but isn't necessarily the best.
Mm-hmm.
So I think my advice would be you've got to work out, you've got to know your boss. So how do I approach that person? What's the best way for me to approach them?
What is your best way?
I think you ask for a chat. You could go as being as bold as sending them a meeting request if you want. Sometimes they are busy and they don't prioritize, rightly or wrongly. And I'd send a meeting request. And simple terms, employment review. Get them thinking. because they'll be panicking that potentially this is somebody who's going to be leaving, and they'll be looking at your.
Because that's the way you shouldn't just hand your notice in, because they might not.
No, because there might be an opportunity. You don't know what's being discussed in the background. It could be that you're very impatient, and sometimes a good constructive conversation might help you see there's a future path and more money to be earned. Typically, I think it's people who are being ignored that are frustrated.
And quite often, it's not necessarily the money.
No,
It's
yeah,
all the other stuff, isn't it?
it is. It's acknowledgement. It's I think there's so much more to it. But ultimately, I think if you're asking for a rise, you've got to know what you're worth, why.
So you've got to compare it, see what others are.
You've got to do some research. Yeah, I mean, you can't just go in and demand £10,000 increase. The chances are you're not going to get it.
But you go onto the recruitment sites like Rainer Personnel and others and see what stuff people are going for.
Or even speak to a recruiter. Say I'm out there looking in the market. They'll be able to tell you whether you're in the right price category as far as your salary is concerned. So definitely do your homework.
And when you do ring them up, make sure you know your numbers, because if you sound a bit wishy-washy, you're at the bottom of the pile.
Yeah, you've got to be on your front foot. Absolutely.
Treat that chat with the recruiter as if it's a Mickey interview.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And it's preparation. You go into those calls knowing your numbers, which backs up your worth as why me. And I think that's how I would approach it. And go armed with a conversation and an agenda. Stick to your agenda.
What would your advice be to estate agency bosses who are thinking, because again, a big one at the moment is some people are losing their star valuers and team to be like EXP and self-employed agents?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to look at your model. How you're managing your team. Is there HR support or HR from an estate agency background? Because I think that's sometimes the problem. As far as trainers in estate agency, do they have an estate agency background?
Training.
Yeah.
I mean, God's sake. I mean, I challenge anyone to name more than 9 estate agency trainers for 14,000 firms.
No, I couldn't do it.
No, can't.
No.
9 between. Okay, the big boys will assume everyone's got their own trainers, but I'm talking about the agents with like less than 1 or 2 branches. They don't have trainers.
No, they don't. And I mean, that kind of goes back to what I said earlier, is that having a mentor in the business, somebody you can listen to their conversations, their body language, how they operate. Because if they're a winner, you'll soon start picking up their habits, if you like, and you'll follow. Training in a estate agency, I mean, if you had a manual, it'd be never ending. But I do believe that training is essential. I think we throw people in at the deep end too quick. Various different departments. I mean, property managers. I wouldn't let a new property manager, talk to a landlord for at least 4 weeks, if not 8. Because I think they need to understand all the various components of property management and how to hold those conversations.
Definitely. Well, these are our thoughts. What are your thoughts? Please put them in the comments. Thank you for your time today, Andrew.
Thank you.